Section 1.4 is review of percents. Okay, so first thing you need to understand is whenever we say percent, as you know, per really means division, and cent, like how we do dollars, is really out of 100. So think of it as percent means per 100. Okay, or maybe I should say divide by 100, which is why when you see 53%, for example, okay, you are really talking about 53 divided by 100. So percent just means divide by 100. Okay, and in any division equivalently, that's like moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. So that's when we write it as 0.53. So this is writing as a percent, this is writing as a fraction, and this is writing as a decimal. So you need to be familiar about how to move from one position to another. So let's quickly review it. So if you want to go from percent to decimal, okay, if you want to go from percent to decimal, equivalently, that's when you move 2 places to the left. Okay, because remember, you're dividing. So when you're dividing, you are making the number smaller. So you drop the percent sign. Okay, so take for example, if we are going for, if this is 5%, okay, and you want it as a decimal, so all you have to do is 5 means the decimal point is right in the back. So you move 2 places to the left, okay, and so your final answer, and you drop the percent sign, so equivalently is 0.05. Now this is going from percent to decimal. Now what happens if you want to go from decimal back to percent? So you pretty much do the reverse. So instead of moving to the right, left, you will move to the right. So move 2 places to the right. So instead of left, you do it to the right, and instead of dropping the percent sign, you add the percent sign. Okay, or maybe I should say you attach the percent sign. But don't forget, you have to do 2 things, okay? Move and then attach. So take for example, if now I have the decimal, let's say 0.0023. So what you need to do is move the decimal point 2 over, so 1, 2, move him over, and then you stick the percent sign. So it's going to be 0.23 and then percent. So let's see again. If this is, let's say, 0 point, or maybe not 0 point, so let's say it's 10.526, and you want it as a percentage. This is decimal, okay, this is decimal. You want it as a percentage, you're going to make it bigger, so move 2 places to the right. So this is where you go 1052.6, so 1052.6, and then you attach the percent sign. Okay, so this is going from percent to decimal and decimal back to percent. Okay, now what if I want to go from percent to fraction? Okay, what if I want to go from percent to fraction? Then if you recall, percent means per 100, right? So what you need to do is you need to replace the percent sign by multiplying of 1 over 100. So let's make sure you understand. So take for example, we are talking about, say, 3%. Okay, so equivalently is like 3 times. Drop the percent sign. So replace the percent sign by multiplying. So multiplying by 1 over 100, like that. So this becomes 3 over 100. So at this point, you'll be wondering, why so troublesome? Why don't you just write 3 over 100? Okay. Now, what if I don't give you 3%? What if I give you, say, okay, let's make this a bit more challenging. Let's say 1⅓%. Now what are you going to do? Okay. So this is what you have to do. A mixed number, remember, you're supposed to change it into improper fractions. So 1 times 3 plus 1. So that makes it 4/3%. So this is the same thing. But the percent sign is still there. See that? The percent sign is still there. So what you need to do is replace the percent sign by 1 over 100. So you have to look at it as 4/3 multiply by 1 over 100. So replace the percent sign by divide by 100. Think like that. Okay, percent means per 100. So now you notice we can reduce. Okay, like this. We can reduce. So what's the answer? 1 over 75. Okay, so this is how you go from percent to fraction. Okay, let me show you one more example. Let's make sure you totally get this. Okay, so if let's say this is let's say 25 and 1/4%. Okay, how do you change this to a fraction, right? So what you do is change this to a improper fractions first. So it's going to be 25 times 4 plus 1 and keep the denominator, right? But at the same time, your percent sign, you're going to write it as times 1 over 100. So this is going to read 101 over 4, but this will read over 100. So your final answer is 101 over 400. So this is how you go from percent to fraction. Now, what if we reverse the process and we want to go from fraction to percent? Okay, what if we want to do that? Then you do the reverse. So what you do is you will multiply by 100 over 100, because 100 over 100 is the same as 1, but equivalently this is the same as 100%. Remember, when you divide by 100, it really means percent. Okay, so 100% means 1. Okay, so you just multiply your fraction by 1. So let's make sure you understand. Take for example, now I were to give you the fraction 1/2. Okay, how do I convert this to percent? Okay, so this is as a fraction. How do you convert to percent? What you do is you take your 1/2 and you multiply by 100%. Okay, so now you notice that 2 goes into 150 times, so that's 50%. So this is our favorite, right? When we go shopping and you say, okay, you get half off. Half off means 50%. Okay, it's a 50% sale. The section on percent actually requires you to know a little bit more than just doing the conversions. So converting from one to another, decimal to percent, percent to fractions, these is just one of the requirements, but you also need to know the applications. So what are some of the applications that we use involving percentage? Okay, so let's try the first type. The first type is where we solve it as from an equation to some unknown. So let me show you the example so you understand what I'm talking about. For example, I ask you, what number is 20% of 85? Okay, now you could try to think in terms of is and of and things like that. Okay, but I think you should try to translate from words into symbols. So let's try. What number, as in you don't know. Okay, so anytime you don't know what to use, you're gonna use a variable for it, right? So let's call it, say, n. Okay, what number? I don't know, so I'm gonna call n. Now what do you use when you see the word is? So let's write this down. Whenever you see the word is, means equal. Okay, so that's equal for you. Now 20%, as you recall, 20% means 20 over 100, right? And what does of mean? So of means multiply. Okay, so when you see of, it means multiply, and 85. So there you have it, direct translation from wordings into equation. So what number? That's n. Is, so you translate as equal. Maybe I should point to this way. Okay, it's equal. 20% is 20 over 100. Of means multiply, and 85. Okay, so this is where you solve the equation, right? So n is equal to, I think we can reduce this. So this is 1 and 5, and 5 into 85 is 17 times, so n is 17. So there you have it. Okay, now let's try another problem. So if I say 15% of what number is 1.2, for example. Okay, so direct translation, 15%, so it's 15 over 100. Of means multiply. What number? So I don't know what number, so I'm going to call it n. Is means equal and 1.2. So there you have your equation. Okay. So one way to solve the equation is where you can choose to cross multiply. That's one way, right? So this is like 15n over 100 is equal to 1.2. So think of it like 1.2 over 1. So we can try to cross multiply. So 15n is equal to 1.2 times 100. So 15n is equals to, so multiplying by 100 is moving 2 decimal place over. So it's 120. And if you divide both sides by 15, n is equal to, so let's do our division real quick, 15. So that's like 8 times, and it's exactly 120. So n is 8. Now let's try this next question that's a little bit more challenging. So the question is, what percent of 80 is 8? Okay. So direct translation again, what percent, as in I don't know, so I'm going to call it n. Of means multiply, 80 is means equal, and is 8. So it forces me to divide by 80 on both sides, which tells me n is, let's reduce this, it becomes 1 over 10. Now this is the part I hope you remember. 1 over 10 is what you call a fraction. Okay, it's what you call a fraction, but the question is not asking you what fraction. It's asking you what percent. Okay, so how do you convert from fraction to percent? Okay, that's when you have to remember you can't just attach the percent sign, because percent, so let's make sure you understand, 100% means 100 over 100, which is 1. So you can always use that. So that's why I'm allowed to multiply by 100%. But when I multiply by 100%, it kind of gave me the excuse to bring in the percent sign. Okay, so now I'm looking at 10 and the 100, they reduce, and so the final answer is 10, and the percent sign is already there, so just copy. So the answer becomes 10%. Okay, so you cannot just attach the percent sign, you have to have an excuse to bring it in, and the excuse is 100% is 100 over 100, which is 1. So there are other applications that's also discussed in the book. So let me just go through one or two of them. One of the type that is close to home is sales tax. Okay, so let's talk about sales tax. Okay, so that's something we pay every day, right, when we buy things. So let's give an example. So take for example an item cost $500, and the rate of sales tax. So I don't want to use the California one because that's like 9.75. Okay, so let's pick some other state. Not sure which state, but let's pretend the state is 7%. Okay, let's pick some easy numbers. So an item costs $500 and the rate of sales tax is 7%. Okay, let's take that. What is the final sale price of the item? So think like this, okay? So what is the amount of tax? The amount of tax is 7%, and 7% of your $500. So think of 7% as 7 over 100. That's what percent means. Of means multiply, and it's multiplied by 500. So you might want to cross out the zeros, okay, to make it easy computation. So I'm now looking at 7 times 5, and so that's $35. Now that's only the tax. So the shopkeeper is not going to let you walk away by paying $35, because what you have paid is just the tax. Okay, so what is the final price of the item? You have to pay the cost of the item, which is $500, and don't forget you have to pay this as tax. Okay, so this is the cost of the item, and that's the tax. So what you have to pay eventually is the full amount of $535. Okay, so this is something that we use very close to home, right? All right, let's look at one more application. Okay, let's look at tip. Okay, so now that's another thing that we do all the time, right? If you go to a restaurant, you are well, recommended to put a 15% tip. Okay, so take for example the bill. Okay, so can you calculate the 15% tip on a bill amount of say $45? Okay, so here we are only talking about tip. We're not talking about what you need to pay. Okay, so just the tip alone, we need to pay 15% and 15% based on $45. So think of it as 15 over 100 multiplied by 45 over 1. Okay, so let's do our division. So because this is money, you cannot end up with a fraction. Okay, so you can't say, oh, I have to pay 2 of a dollar. It doesn't make sense. You have to give it to me as a decimal. So this is where I'm going to multiply the 15 and the 45. Okay, let me show you. 15 and 45. Let's see. This is 5 and 2, so it's 7. Okay, 4 and 5 is 22. So what is it? 6. So it's 675. So I'm looking at 675 over 100. And 100 is a nice number. You notice I can actually reduce this, but I don't want to because I want to use it as a decimal. So this comes out to be 6.75. Okay. So what is the tip amount? It's going to be $6.75. And there you have it. So I'm not going to do too many applications, but this is just to show you that we use percentage all the time in our daily lives. Okay? And that's all on 1.4 that I want to go over.